Full Service Radio is proudly supported and hosted by Simplecast, the easiest way for a podcast creator to publish and distribute audio on the internet. For more information, visit simplecast.com.
Full Service Radio.
Peace, everyone, and welcome to the Edible Activist Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa L. Jones, broadcasting live from the lobby of the Line, D.C. This podcast is where dynamic people of color in the food and agricultural space share their personal food journeys, passions, and perspectives that stem from the land, all exemplifying the spirit of activism in their own edible way. Let's get started. Peace, everyone, and welcome to the Edible Activist Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa L. Jones, broadcasting live from the lobby of the Line, D.C. on Full Service Radio. So for today's show, land for farming is scarce and also very expensive in the district. As commercial construction and real estate, as you all see, is rapidly on the rise, where can you farm for full production? To your surprise, for some of y'all, there are a few options, but we must give credit to those who made this happen. Gail Taylor is the owner and operator of 3 Part Harmony, a 2-acre ecological farm located in Northeast DC, right in our backyard, guys, right in our backyard. Gail played a major role in the I Want DC to Grow campaign back in 2012 that led to the successful passage of the DC Farm Bill. This bill makes it possible for a farmer to operate on land in the city while benefiting from reduced property taxes. And we're going to break all this down because I need it broken down for me too. And Gail's going to break it down for us. 3 Part Harmony has a dedicated tribe of CSA members, and has set an admirable example for budding farmers and growers here in the district. Welcome to the show, Gail. I am so excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here.
This is golden. I joked with Gail right before the show. I said, Gail she don't leave her farm for much, okay?
It's true.
So the fact that she's spending some time, and we're going to have fun here, and spending some time here with me on the show, I'm honored. I am honored. Gail, I have read numerous articles about you. Not to stalk you, but I always use the word stalk, and I know that you're known as a people's farmer, and rightfully so. Whether you want to take credit to that or not, you are, and you have laid down and put in a lot of groundwork here in the district to make it possible to do the things that farmers and growers want to do here, and on so many different levels. And you're from Illinois, don't have a background in farming.
No.
You actually have been in the advocacy space,
yeah.
And from what I understand, you had this quarter-life crisis, I read, and you just came to this space where you needed to venture out and do some other things, and food was on your radar and wanted an understanding of where it was coming from, how it was sourced, and then you said, I want to grow. But for money and profit.
Yeah, well, for money. I don't know about profit.
Well, yeah, and there is a difference, okay?
There's a huge difference.
There's a big difference. Just because you're making money doesn't mean you're profiting,
yeah.
Which we'll actually get in later on today and later in the show. But definitely want to touch on your past advocacy work, because I really do want the audience to understand how instrumental you were in really laying the groundwork for people like you to be able to farm for full production. And I knew it wasn't a picnic, because anytime you're dealing with politics, and especially in D.C., it ain't a picnic. She said in her head. So if you can just touch on that and what that campaign looked like, just briefly,
Sure.
The I Want DC to Grow and how that led to the DC Farm Bill.
Well, I didn't start out with the idea that I would have a policy campaign. I had left that world to start growing vegetables. Mostly all I wanted to do was ride my bike to work, and wake up every day and be the people's farmer. That's what I had in my mind. I would grow food for my neighbors. But there were some barriers, namely the financial ones, that forced me to sit down with a group of folks and sort of orchestrate this campaign that would lead to what now is known as the Farm Bill in DC. And I just had to dig deep into my back pocket and take out all of those skills that I had learned doing policy advocacy and grassroots organizing when I moved to DC, to do things like bring together stakeholders and sort of lay out a plan, take a look at what access I had to services and to folks who would help. And one of the first places I went actually was the American University Law School. Three Part Harmony Farm became a pro bono client of their law clinic. So,
oh wow, I'm familiar with the law clinic.
That was a really actually huge piece of it. There's a professor there named Brenda Smith who was really excited about it and convinced the 3Ls to take me on. And I sort of taught them, how to sort of go through researching and looking at what other jurisdictions had done in order to make it applicable to DC. All we did was look at how other parts of the country had made access to farmland affordable, and we translated that onto a smaller scale.
Wow. So what does the DC Farm Bill mean to a grower? What advantages does that grower or farmer have? How are they reaping the benefits from that Farm Bill?
Well, I should say, actually, to be honest, there are not a lot of farmers who are getting benefit out of the Farm Bill as it is right now. Implementation has been a huge problem. And I don't think that there are actually that many farms that have been started since the Farm Bill passed. But what could happen, what we designed to have happen with the Farm Bill, were two main things to access land. One is that land that the city owns needs to be made available for people to apply for leases to farm on city-owned lots. And the original bill actually listed a minimum number of city-owned lots that should be made available. The other thing that it does is offer a tax incentive, a tax break for people who own land privately in the district to be able to lease that for farms. And so if you own a lot that is deemed big enough and you lease it to a farmer, you can apply for a 90% tax abatement. So you'd only pay 10% of the taxes. And there's a little line item under that allows for anyone who's exempt from taxes to be able to pass that exemption on to the farmer. That line item was written for 3 Part Harmony Farm, right? Because my landowners, that 2-acre parcel that we lease, are priests. They're an order of priests. They've never paid property taxes. No church institutions pay property taxes. So if you think about that and those implications, every single piece of property in the district that is exempt from property taxes already automatically had the opportunity that my landlords did. They passed on to me, lease to a farmer who wants to grow vegetables and not have to charge them any rent because they didn't have to pay any taxes on that property.
Wow. So you talk about this limited land that was made available. Is that part of the reason why some farmers haven't benefited from the DC Farm Bill? Because there's some landowners who aren't making it available, or what is the biggest roadblock?
Right now, the biggest roadblock is implementing the policy on a government level. When we had a bill passed, it didn't mean automatically that all the government agencies knew how to implement the bill. And I testified twice before City Council, and I talked about this. The problem is that D.C. is not a state. I mean, right? That's just pause right there. That's a problem for so many reasons. But we're not a state.
That's another show.
Many shows.
Right.
DC's not a state, and so we don't have our own state Department of Agriculture. Mm-hmm. And we don't have any, you look at the city of Baltimore, they have already that infrastructure from Maryland state that they can tap into to support their urban agriculture scene. So in DC's like a Wild West, where there's just a huge vacuum of knowledge, of infrastructure, of support. And I suggested many, many times that we set up a reciprocity agreement with some of our neighbors so that we could already tap into existing extension services that farmers desperately need. And I haven't been going to these food policy council meetings. I don't have a ton of time just to go to meetings, but from what I can see, they're just sort of like flailing along trying to figure out what to do. And the reality is the learning curve is just really steep, and I just don't know how long it would take them to figure out what to do, because the truth is we just don't have people who work for the DC government who know how to implement policies that make it possible for vegetable farmers to exist here. You know, like I got all of my training in Maryland.
Right.
And I came to DC and said, I know how to grow food. I don't need you to teach me how to do that. I knew how to do the policy campaign. Basically, everything that 3 Part Harmony Farm has is because of the skill set that I already had, and then getting the community who supports it to be able to make all of that function together.
So in addition to 3 Part Harmony Farm, and I know there's Up Top Acres, how many other farmers? And there's Cultivate the City.
Yeah, there's also Little Wild Things. Little Wild actually Things. A really important one.
Okay, Little Wild Things. Are there many? Is there much more beyond the 3 or 4 of you? Or
not that I know of. You know, DC's biggest farm over at the Kelly Miller Middle School.
Right. That's right.
They just started last year, and their footprint is actually equal to mine on in-the-ground farming. So Violet, who you've had on your show, she's
it's a beautiful farm.
Yeah, she's an incredible grower, and she manages that property. But that, you know, is a collaboration between a 501c3 organization that has a lot of USDA funding, and then also DPR. So it's a little bit different than a family-owned farm like mine or like Mary's, where we are like going every day to work our job so that we can put our free time and our life savings into this business that we're trying to grow. It's just more akin to like the farmers who you see come from out of state to the farmers markets every Saturday and Sunday. Like that's kind of the economic
for miles.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you know, the work has to start somewhere, and you definitely started it.
Yeah.
And like I said, you know, it's whenever you're dealing with, and this can go for a lot of places, but DC is a special place.
For sure. My heart is here.
Right. However you want to define special. It's a special place, and definitely a special place for politics. And definitely if it, you know, weren't for folks like you and others who helped to, you know, push this along, you know, and just really break ground in the possibilities, it would not be possible, you know, but there's definitely a lot of work that needs to be done. Do you get a lot of, you know, growers and farmers who are knocking out your door and saying, Gail, like, what can I do? You know, like what, you know, because they've seen you do it and you're doing it and you've been doing it for, you know, for the past few years. Like, how many knocks do you get on your door saying, help me? She's like,
a lot. Yeah.
Overwhelming.
There's definitely a big interest among people, especially younger people who I remember when I was in my mid-20s and I got into this. You want to be part of something bigger than yourself. The idea of being outside every day is really enticing, being able to grow your own food, seeing people eat the food that you grow. Like this year, we've had 6 or 7 babies born to our CSA members.
Oh my God.
There's just something about like knowing that the food that I grow is in their DNA already.
I love it. In your DNA. Yes.
All of those are reasons why, every week I get emails and phone calls from people who want to, first and foremost, learn how to grow their own food. There's definitely, we just don't have that anymore.
Right.
You know? And so 3 Part Harmony Farm is part of a beginner farmer training program that is run out of Future Harvest, the Chesapeake, Chesapeake Alliance for Sustainable Agriculture. Sarah Stone is the director, and so she sends every year a couple of people to 3 Part Harmony Farm to train with me. We're the only farm in DC proper that's part of this training program. And it's especially interesting, I think, like a lot of people who don't have a car and want to learn how to farm but can't drive into the country to go to a training farm somewhere else. People who are identifying as people of color, as women or gender non-binary folks come to our space, right? Because in addition to growing food, we're also, you know, growing like a welcoming space. So that's definitely, there's a demand for that. We cannot meet the demand, I would say, for sure.
I know the bandwidth is
And then really to answer your
Limited.
question, the other thing is like, I can have someone come and teach them how to do what I do, but I would be hard pressed to try to convince somebody that they should follow the same path that I did in terms
Right.
of starting a farm in DC.
Yeah.
And the first thing I always tell people, don't quit your job.
Yeah.
Because this is not how you make a living.
Yeah. And my question was, do you get folks who want to farm in the city saying, Gail, I want what you have. I want the land in the city. I don't want to go in the counties. I want to be in the city. Do you get that?
A little bit. I
Okay.
think people want a little bit of what we're doing and also a little bit of something else. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things about Three Part Harmony Farm is like the machine of producing those thousands of pounds of vegetables is
Yeah.
just a lot. And there are many things that we don't have the capacity to do. We are definitely not a community organization.
Mm-hmm.
We only open those gates to the public once a year.
And she ain't lying about that, y'all.
I
Once a
can't.
year.
I can't.
No, and I completely understand.
And
you
so
know?
there are a lot of
This is
people-
production.
Yeah. And so there are a lot of people who are like,
So
this-
just don't show up, y'all.
no, please don't.
Please don't.
There's a lot of people who just want to come and learn how to do what we do, but then figure out how to finance it in a different
Yeah.
way so that it can be accessible to the people, which I think is really great.
Absolutely. Guys, this is Melissa L. Jones here with the Edible Activist Podcast, and I am broadcasting live from the lobby of the Line DC on Full Service Radio. I am chatting here with the amazing Gail Taylor, owner and operator of 3 Part Harmony, which is a 2-acre ecological farm in Northeast DC. We were just talking about Gail's advocacy work with the I Want DC to Grow campaign, and really leading to the successful lift of the DC Farm Bill, which needs much work, or much more implementation, we'll say. But it started, and really, I was thinking about this, a few days ago, and and Xavier and I have actually had this conversation, and just thinking 50 years from now, 100 years from now, to look back and to see and that Gail Taylor was really, one of the faces, and really to help lift this off the ground. Really says a lot, Gail. I know Gail doesn't like, you deserve all this credit, whether or not you want to receive it, but, to go 50, 100 years in, and just to look back, that is a big deal. And a woman of color, in this space, it's really big. So thank you for breaking all that down. Sounds like there's still opportunity, but again, there's a lot of implementation work that needs to be done. And like you said, there's no picnic at all.
I guess I would say anybody who wants to do it, you're going to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And that's certainly possible. We have shown that it's possible. The community support is there, even
Yeah.
if the regulatory agencies are very far behind.
Yeah. Gail, so we talked a little bit about money and profit already, very briefly. And so, when you came to this point where you said, I want to start a farm, was profit ever, at the forefront? Was that a thing? Did you think that you could be profitable as a farmer?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought, especially just being in DC and knowing what kind of volume this local food market, the farmers markets, the restaurants, you can see that there's such a high demand for local food in this city. People are driving 4 hours, 5 hours to come into our city every
Yes.
weekend and take my neighbor's money
Yes.
to Pennsylvania.
Yes.
And so when I wrote a business plan, I was basically like, we're just going to keep some of that money at home, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
And that's definitely what I've done. I mean, it's not easy, but the profitability of the business has increased every year. There's only one thing that I still can't reconcile, and that is true for my farm. It's true for all of the farmers in our co-op. You cannot build infrastructure on the sales from vegetables. I can pay my staff, I can buy my expenses, and I can even have a little bit left over at the end, but I cannot bring electricity to my farm. Like, I'm in the middle of DC. I'm off the grid.
Off the grid.
I'm looking at $30,000 of infrastructure improvements, and that is not coming from the CSA.
Wow.
And so those are the kind of things, like, you know, other states might have a way of, you know, applying for a grant or having some kind of infrastructure support that we don't have in DC.
Was the CSA model, like, initially a part of your business plan? Like, you knew that's
well, yes and no.
Okay.
When they tell you when you start a farm not to do a CSA.
Really?
For sure. And I always tell people the same thing because
Okay.
you're new, you don't know what you can do.
Right.
And especially if you're in a new place, you don't know what that soil can do.
That is very true.
And there's nothing worse for the entire industry than to have 25 people have a bad CSA experience.
Yeah.
And, like, spread the word.
Yeah.
So it's usually not a good idea for somebody in their first 1 or 2 years to start a CSA. And I hadn't planned on it. It just happened that because I didn't have access to this 2-acre property initially, my first few years while we were waiting for the farm bill to pass, I was doing a backyard style CSA. And so it just turned out like I'm only growing on these 3 backyards. The only thing I can do is ask 6 friends if they want to come to my porch once a week and pick up vegetables. So it just became this evolutionary backwards thing of like, well, it's a huge risk for them, but the only thing that I have is my community and my family, and I just have to ask them for the support. It was the only option.
Yeah, and you had to do that because even at that point, you know, when the bill was being passed and everything, like you couldn't do anything at the farm, correct? Like you had to.
No, until the farm bill passed, I couldn't get a lease on that property, which means that I wasn't allowed to sell anything we were growing there.
Wow. Wow.
We were basically just investing in the soil for the first 3 years.
Yeah, which is important.
Sure, it was in terrible shape when we got it.
That is important.
Yeah, it was like there were no worms. Then the pH was 4.5. It was pretty bad.
No worms?
No worms.
Goodness.
It was just like this. There's pictures of me there in the first days. I looked like Pigpen. It was just like this dust. It's like a dust bowl.
Yeah. Oh, not a dust bowl. Yikes.
Yeah, and now it's alive. I mean, that's like my number one crop, right? Is the soil that we've built.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Gail, most recently, very recently, you wrote a piece on climate change. And I mentioned to you when I saw you this morning, I said I was really hoping that I will wake up to like torrential downpours because it has not rained. And I literally cannot remember the last time we had a good soaking rain.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of the things that I think at the very beginning of your article, and guys, you have to check this out. She'll shout out her website, but you have to check out this blog that she wrote. And you said we place so much emphasis on the climate devastation that's happening out in the islands, you know, and in other countries. But really, you know, we're just as affected, you know, and it's so easy to put our eyes, you know, towards the tsunamis that are taking place, the tornadoes that are swarming through, you know, these countries. But here in our very own district where we hadn't had a good rain and, you know, our trees need to be soaked and, we just haven't had that. And with a lot of the farming that's been, you know, taking place here in the district and moving more into our city as much as it possibly can, my first question is, and actually someone even asked me this question. I was actually talking to an author, and it was the question of, can the district and other urban cities really become a habitat for species that are threatened by climate change? Do you believe that? And I know you guys are a certified bee farm. So you've built a habitat that is, you know, a farm that's habitat friendly, you know, and that, and I've been to farms in Philadelphia and the same thing, you know, it may be like, you know, that 1 or 2 acres and outside it's the hood, you know, but you got butterflies coming through, but the butterflies wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the farm. But our cities, can we position ourselves to become that place? You know, to become this place that's habitat friendly. But we ain't got no rain though, Gail.
Yeah. I mean, last year we had too much. I wish we could just like spread it out a little bit.
Good grief.
Yeah, I think it's really important, the role that creating habitat for many species has for the environment, but I will tell you, it takes a long time. We have now been farming on that property in Northeast DC for 8 years, and every year we see new animals.
Do you?
And these are just the animals that I see. Like, one year there's a red-tailed fox, and then the next year there's a hawk, and then
hawk?
Last year we had turkeys.
Turkey, like just
turkeys.
They just found their way to the.
Yeah. They were not my favorite.
Did you name? They were. Oh shoot.
They're kind of mean. I mean, and of course now with the drought we have deer, which is a huge problem.
That's a big problem. Yeah.
No, and I mean, plus, like you say, the monarch butterflies and all of these different birds and things that we see every year. It's pretty incredible, but it takes time for those things to happen, because it's not just the mammals that I see. There's so many things behind that, right? Like all of the plants and the insects and the different things that are building up over time. But before there was concrete, Washington, D.C. and the surrounding area was inhabited by people who lived in tandem with the land.
Yes, it was green.
Yeah.
It was green, y'all. Believe it or not, it was green.
We had old growth forest. We had, so why can't we do that again?
Yeah.
We just have to be committed.
We have to be committed. And when I say we don't have no rain, I'm not talking about drizzle, guys.
No.
We're talking about rain, okay? Not like spit rain for like 3 minutes and that's it. No, we need some good rain. So no, thank you for that. And guys, seriously, go check out her piece on climate change. I mean, again, just a few days ago, it's just like, it is dry. It shouldn't be 80 degrees in October. We've had 80 degrees weather in January, and we're celebrating. It's nothing to celebrate. It's really not. It's actually a very scary thing. I know that you guys like the sun. I was born in June. I get it. But I'm also a seasonal person, and when seasons change, like, we need the weather that is supposed to be for that season. And for farmers and growers, this is serious. You really do rely on the season, for your crops, and it's crazy. So hopefully we'll get some rain, some good rain today. All right, guys, we're going to take a really quick break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Perfect Day, produced by Artists Authentic. For more of Authentic's work, visit allornothingstudios.com. Welcome back, everyone. This is Melissa L. Jones here with the Edible Activist Podcast, broadcasting live from the lobby of the Line, D.C. on Full Service Radio. And I have been chatting with Gail Taylor, who is the owner and operator of 3 Part Harmony in Northeast D.C., right in our backyards, guys. And we've been talking about everything from the D.C. Farm Bill to a campaign that she worked on. Just wrapped up a brief conversation on climate change. So once the show is over, you guys if you missed the first half of the show, definitely tune in, because really great perspectives and conversations. Gail, I hope you're having fun here.
It's so much fun.
That makes me happy.
Yeah.
I joked earlier, Gail don't leave her farm for much, y'all. Okay, she does not. Like this, she is dedicated and such a hard worker, and just such a great example. So many people look up to you, Gail. So many people. I was telling folks yesterday, I was at a summit. It's like, Gail's going to be on the show. Yo, Gail's going to be on the show. Yes, Gail's going to be on the show. And hopefully you'll come back.
Yeah, I've been wanting to come for a long time.
Yay!
Something always gets in the way.
I know. Well, today is your day, and I'm glad that you made it.
Me too.
So, Gail, there's always a lot of talk about food access.
Yeah.
All the time. And I am really, really interested in hearing your perspectives on how we can, quote unquote, I have to put this in quotes, solve food access. I put that in quotes because I have my own opinions about food access and what we really do have access to. I don't think there's a lack of food, but obviously, when I think of food access, I think of the systems that are in place, and I also think of poverty. It really has a big, a big dealing with access to food and why people aren't at proximity to a lot of the nutritious foods that they should be. It's a poverty issue. I am interested in your perspectives on how we can solve this, or what you think the biggest contributor of this whole big food access thing is.
I think the single biggest issue for people having access to food is that food is something that's in a store and you need money to walk into the store and buy it. And until we think of food as something that everyone has a right to, like water and oxygen and housing, then we're always going to be running up against the capitalist system and the way that requiring money to get food is connected to that. When you're in a food shortage, the price of food goes up.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Because the supply
demand.
Exactly. So, that's, for me, it's like, unless we're talking about that and completely changing that dynamic, we're never going to solve the problem. What we have are all of these ideas of Band-Aid solutions of what that means. Like, okay, well, the people in this neighborhood don't have a grocery store, so maybe we should use taxpayer dollars to subsidize a grocery store to be in that neighborhood so that people can walk to the grocery store. Well, just because you can walk into a store, if the produce is too expensive for people, they're still not going to have access to it. And yet you facilitated taxpayer dollars to be used in this way to subsidize this thing that still people who have money are going to, be enjoying instead of the people who really need it.
Right.
So I think that there's a lot of misappropriation of money and ideas that seem good but aren't really solving the problem. And then for me, the second thing is okay, so you want to talk about how people have access to food, but you're not talking about the financial realities of the people who are growing said food.
Right. And
this is my other biggest problem with the way that these kinds of solutions are talked about, especially in the nonprofit community in DC, is farmers aren't making any money. We're working multiple jobs to be able to go to the place where we're growing food for people. But the answer always seems to be that I should be coming up with a way how my vegetables can cost less money. The seeds didn't cost less money, like my payroll doesn't cost less money.
Hello.
So why do you think that I should be able to lower the price on the vegetables just because my neighbors need to be able to eat it? I'm not denying the fact that I want everybody to eat good food. Right. But the lower price for the vegetables is not possible.
Not at all. And Gail, and since you started the farm, you've worked the farm, but you've also worked another job in addition to the farm, correct?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because you have to.
I have to. The farm, like most family-owned farms, my farm is subsidized by the fact that I bought a house with 3 other people. In 2010.
Okay.
And so my rent has not gone up in 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Whoa.
And because I own that home, every single floor of that house, and even the backyard, the farm's greenhouse was in the backyard.
Right.
So that homeownership privilege has made it possible for me to start the farm, plus having a job. But basically my expenses are absurdly low because I went into this community homeownership project with other people.
Wow. Is there more of that? I'm actually curious. Was that when you went into that, was that a thing that was being done around that time? Going into the home ownership thing with a few other folks, or?
Yeah, that's
a big issue here in the district too.
It is. Yeah, I was living 3 blocks from here in Adams Morgan for 5.5 years, and our rent was going up every year.
Of course.
And
of course,
I just saw the writing on the wall of
Rent goes up and more rats.
Yeah, exactly. So, I had been volunteering at Empower DC at the time, working on the People's Property campaign, and a friend of mine and I in the campaign, we were just like, how are we going to do? What's going to happen when we're 50? What's going to happen when we're 60?
Real talk.
So we started looking around on the internet and talking to people in DC who work on community land trusts and other kinds of ways, which I heard on the radio, I think last week, they're talking about doing it as part of the 11th Street Bridge project, which could be really great.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. I didn't know about that.
Basically, our idea and what a lot of people are talking about is a way for low and moderate income people to have access to home ownership. And one of the ways you do that is by taking out the cost of the land, which in a lot of places in DC could be as much as half of the cost of the house.
Whoa.
So imagine cutting the cost of your townhouse by 50% just because there's a community land trust that is holding the trust and holding on to that deed for the land itself.
For folks who buy a house in the district, do they even own the land when they buy the house?
They do, but when you get your tax assessment, it tells you, like, this is how much your land is assessed at, and this is how much the improvements are assessed at, which would be like the house and if you have a garage.
That's interesting.
So it does break it down like that. And you kind of are like, wow, I can't believe, like, you think that our house sits on 1/8 of an acre. Wow. We're like, wow, $240,000 for just an empty 1/8 of an acre lot. It's a lot of money.
God. I'm literally, wow, I swear.
And it seems like this doesn't have anything to do with farming, but
oh, it does.
The truth, this is what I'm saying, is like that I have paid the same low rent where I live now for 10 years in this property that I bought with 3 other people. That's why I could go to work and not have to pay myself. That's how I built the business.
Well, which segue into our next topic of land liberation.
Yes.
Talking about land. Let's go for it. You were in attendance for the live podcast event that I did months back with Dom on land liberation.
Yeah.
And
talk about a scholar.
A scholar.
That guy.
He is. Dom, if you're listening, you're a scholar. Brilliant. Bro, I can't even tell you how many people sent me messages after listening to that podcast and was just like, whoa. Like the gems that he dropped was just like crazy. And I had Dom start off by defining how he defined land liberation. And it was, a myriad of things from us really taking care of the land, to really sum it all up, and having respect for the land and being in harmony with the land, because there's so much destruction that us as human beings have done to the land. That it's really messed up. It's really messed up. It's infecting our indigenous communities, just our entire world. Like it's crazy. So definitely just wanted to get your thoughts on what you pulled from those conversations and really how you define land liberation and what that means to you as someone who's on the land just about every single day, tends to the land. I know 3 Point Harmony is a sacred space, a healing space, and I know you're very intentional about what enters that space. Maybe more strict, as you should be, because it's more than just growing vegetables. You're cultivating a community, and the energy you bring into that land and that space, you're growing stuff that you're feeding other people, and you want to think about that, know? So you just don't tolerate anything, as you should not. So being out there every single day, like, what does land liberation mean to you?
I think that's a good question that maybe sometimes is hard to think about. Maybe it's because it just seems so sometimes unattainable.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, to me, land liberation just means that we are all working together to take care of the space where we are. But we live in a world where deeds and titles are put on pieces of land.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the language that we speak.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I have a very articulate way of being able to say how we get from one thing to another. I think given the complicated dynamic of that, the reality, like where we are now, what land liberation looks like for Black people, for people of color, is something like reparations.
Yes.
Is the closest that we would get to that.
Yes.
And that still is a complicated thing.
Extremely complicated.
How do you give land to and oppressed people when that land belonged anyway to somebody else. There's so many layers to that.
I spent maybe 2 hours reading the article about, the USDA distorting data, and it took me originally they said it was like maybe 50-minute read. I had to go back and reread it. I still got to go back and reread it, and there are more articles coming out about land loss. And that has been happening forever. For some folks, they think this is new. It's not new. It's been happening for generations and generations and generations. So, your feelings on what land liberation is and it being unattainable that's totally a fair, perspective. And, I think by the end of the day, I'm really hoping that more people latch on to these conversations and hear. There are more podcasts coming out about it, more articles coming out about it. I mean, The Atlantic just did a whole article about it, because this is real.
Yeah. And it feels so overwhelming. Yeah. Sometimes I find myself in the situation where, because I own the farm, people expect the farm and the space to be available in ways to the community that it's not. People call me and say, when is the farm open? It's not and open. It's in my lease that we are limited in the amount of foot traffic that we can have. Yeah. Would that I could just do whatever I want with this $5 million property that I don't own. Wow. But it's not all up to me. And so I'm sort of like emotionally attached to this thing that I built. But I also just think, like, for me, as a member of the Black Dirt Farm Collective and as a part of, a community of Black farmers, what we really need to be thinking about is how we can get ourselves on land that we own. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Spot on. I would actually want to go back to your CSA, because the CSA is the heart of three-part harmony. And from what I understand, do you include seeds in your CSA boxes at all, or did you used to?
We used to.
Okay. I thought that was really interesting that you did.
I am a member of a Seed Keepers Collective, and we used to, through Part Harmony Farm, used to grow out some seeds from that collection. We haven't done it in a few seasons.
Okay. What were the responses from the members when they would get the seeds?
People were really excited. It's like a special thing that you can't really put a financial value on, that special connection with seed. I was going to say,
what a connection. Yeah. To see if I had a CSA box and I saw the seeds, just like connecting to stories and history and, to the, a really strong connection with three-part harmony.
Yeah, there's a lot of vegetables where the seed that you plant is the same thing that you eat.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
and I like that a lot. I think it's really cool to be more sustainable in that way and not have to depend on buying seeds again every year for something. One of the most important things that we grow is hardneck garlic. Okay. And that is, anybody can do this. Anyone listening right now can take that head of garlic and peel off the individual cloves and plant that. Wow. And so we do give out garlic in the CSA that we've grown, and a lot of our CSA members will save that for themselves so that they can plant, and they do it on the same schedule that I just had somebody ask me ask me last Thursday, when are you planting your garlic?
Let me know.
Yeah. I'm going to do it on the same day.
Wow. Well, we definitely have to wrap up in a few minutes. I just looked at the time. I'm like, see, it goes by so fast. Gail, you got to come back, man. You got to come back. But I do have a couple more questions for you. So I have to ask you, because we're going to do our rapid fire really quick. We'll breeze through that. But the other thing I wanted to toss out there, you guys grow ginger.
Yeah.
That is wild. That is so wild to me that you guys can grow that in this climate, in an abundance of ginger too, it seems like.
Yeah, this year was a particularly good year. I'm not sure why, but I'm taking it.
Right, exactly. It happened. Oh my goodness, I have to get my hands on that ginger. You mentioned to me, and this was through some email conversations that we had, and I definitely agree with your opinion on this. When it comes to farmers of color, and there not being progressive ways to actually support farmers of color. What does that look like for you? Because we're asked to show up to the conferences and to make our speeches and share our community work and, really be a part of something that has been excluding us, for quite some time. But you just can't leave your farm for free. And others can't do that as well. But really, I think putting the onus on these, other organizations and companies who really do want to include our voices in our stories, but being intentional about, in your words, being progressive to support us. What does that look like?
I mean, I think it's a lot of internal work that people still have to do.
Okay.
Right? Like I think it's a lot to ask people of color to do this kind of education for you. To be honest, I think, we really need white people to be stepping up more and doing that internal work, because what it takes is being able to understand your own privilege and how that is affecting how you got access to the thing that you have. You drive every week into the city and you leave the city every week with $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 of money from a single farmer's market, and you look around, you don't see any black farmers at that farmer's market.
Right.
Why is that?
Exactly.
And then I get invited to speak on a panel and somebody wants to ask me why I'm not doing more to grow food for low-income people. Nobody's asking that farmer, what about your neighbors who buy vegetables at the dollar store? What are you doing about food deserts in rural America, which is a real thing?
Yes.
Nobody's asking those farmers about that. They're only giving them access to this super lucrative market. Maybe if I made $5,000 on a Sunday at a farmer's market, I would be able to donate more vegetables too. Do you know what I mean? But the problem is, like, people first and foremost are not sitting with the actuality of that privilege.
Yeah.
And that is the kind of work that I don't take on for other people. So for me, my position from the very beginning has always just been like, this is me, this is what we're doing, this is my community, and I have faith that the community can come and support this thing. And even if that power struggle and that power dynamic is slow to come, we are still successful because it's our community that is supporting what we're doing.
And that's that. Thank you, Gail.
Thanks.
This has been so exciting. You're definitely coming back, okay? You don't have an option. You got to come back. We'll probably invite some others on the show, too. We'll have a fun little party. Where can folks find you on social media, Gail, or the farm?
The farm's on 3partharmonyfarm.org. We have an incredible, actually, volunteer group that runs our Instagram.
Awesome.
I think it's 3P Harmony.
I believe so. If you guys find my page, and you'll find 3Part Harmony.
Sorry, Tyler.
We'll put it up in the show notes. It's okay.
I think it's 3P Harmony. Pretty sure.
All right, so we're going to do a really quick rapid fire. You ready?
Yes.
All right. So, Gail, what is your favorite veggie?
I really like tomatoes.
Isn't that a fruit?
It is. I don't know why I said that. No, I like greens.
You like greens? Okay. Okay, so is your next, I'm going to ask you what your favorite fruit is, but are you going to, I will give you tomatoes for vegetables.
No,
I will give you that.
I like greens. I like greens. I eat greens for breakfast.
Do you really?
Greens and
nice
eggs.
And savory. Oh, yum. That sounds so good. Okay, so what is your favorite fruit?
I am not a good fruit eater, but I like these. We are getting these Asian pears in our CSA.
I love Asian
from
pears.
Sydney Kuhn. They're really great.
Okay, yummy. Actually, I had one this morning for
So
breakfast.
juicy.
Sweet, spicy, sour, or salty?
Salty.
The
I know
savory.
it's bad for you.
In moderation. Everything in moderation, right? That's what I say. Okay, last artist you listen to in your playlist.
This is a hard. We're like in a streaming world.
That is true.
It's hard to pick one.
I know. What do you remember?
I like. I
heard you like 90s music.
Yeah, I like 80s.
80s and 90s.
All kind of like women pop divas from the 80s and the 90s.
Okay.
But I also listen to Celia Cruz.
Okay.
A lot, or like Ella Fitzgerald.
Okay. Awesome. Do
I
you
like anything
Stacey
I can.
Pennison?
Yes.
Like, I'm telling you, I will Vogue as soon as I start listening to her. I love her music. I love it. All right, so what's one action step, and we talked about a ton of them, if you picked up on them, what's one action step someone can take towards edible activism?
Change the way that you relate to food. Stop seeing food as something that you are consuming in the present time.
Wow. That's deep.
We live in a place where it snows. And if you want to be seasonal and local, you need to get into the idea of like, what I give you every week in your CSA share is something that you need to be eating in December.
Wow.
Don't tell me that you still have that Swiss chard in your refrigerator from last week and you don't need more. Because in December, I'm not going to be here. And that is, I think, the number one hardest thing for people to make that switch in their minds is like, I am not growing food for you for June. I am growing food for you for 12 months of the year. Mm-hmm. This is how people used to eat. This is how we need to be doing it again.
Wow. And Gail's words. Those are her words. All right, y'all. Peace. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We are here live on Full Service Radio every Wednesday at 11 a.m., where you can catch today's episode on fullserviceradio.org, as well as iTunes and Spotify. Be sure to follow me at Food Talks in Color on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Are you an edible activist? Sure you are. Come join me on the show. I would love to feature you. Just shoot me a DM on the gram. Peace and blessings all. And remember, there is no culture without agriculture.
Thanks for listening to this program on Full Service Radio, broadcasting and recording from the Line Hotel in Adams Morgan, Washington, D.C. Full Service Radio programming can be accessed live and archived on fullserviceradio.org. Our talk programming is available on most podcast apps like iTunes and Stitcher, and our DJ sets are available on mixcloud.com/fullserviceradio. Full Service Radio features over 30 weekly shows and over 50 local hosts covering every topic imaginable. If you want to be a guest or get involved, email us at info@fullserviceradio.org. Follow us on Twitter at FullServiceRDO, on Instagram and Facebook at Full Service Radio. Thanks for listening.